in the pang of the urgent loneliness wheel. The scorching illusion of separation feels so destroyingly real. Sting of heartbreak, ring of melancholy. I am not good enough? Who am I exactly? What's the deal? Humbly submerged, song of spirit to its core. A dolphin basking in the glory of the ocean's continuous roar, clapping, folding, holding. Hear me, for this I am. Soaring over the vastness of the fleeting canyon tops most high, an awestruck eye weaving between the rocks, remembering how to fly. Liberation, expansion, boundless beyond belief. See me, for this I am. Flames of pain, transformed by the burns of passion we climb. Salt on your brow turns my lips into wine, delicious, sublime. Exhilaration, intense, unusually alive. Taste me, for this I am. The smell of that ancient wood, a moment locked in time, barely understood. Mysterious, fragrant memory. Breathe me in, for this I am. Sharp pinch of ice, quick smack of fire. Hot sun greets my skin, followed by a lick of warm desire. Present, awake, body awareness, touch me, for this I am. I am a clump of clay, the sculptor and the tools, observing the nimbleness of the thumb as it reshapes the rules within rules. I am the great earth, echoing the untold story with all of her might, traveling through the exalted adventure of night as it returns to the light. I am behind the laughing eyes of the child, dancing so freely on the rubbish tip. The shadow of the pretty lady, weeping on the luxury cruise ship. I am the one with no beginning, and I have no end. Born into this world to play, pretend, pretend, pretend. I am the lost, the found, and the small dark sigh. I am the great central sun, and the almighty artist in the sky. I am the plastic deception secret, and that sparkle which is true. I am, I am, I am forever me, and I am eternally you. guys. Just before I finish this film clip, I just wanted to say something in relation to this animation about what God, Source, the great creator, is from a quantum physics perspective, and how everything seems to be connected through Source, but from a scientific perspective. And in a related subject, how natural magic is actually an advanced form of science. I feel that if humanity at large had more knowledge and interest actually in these kinds of things, we would be more empowered to create the reality that we prefer, rather than just accepting the reality that we are handed to. The first thing I'd like to mention is this phenomenon of quantum entanglement. Einstein used to call it spooky action at a distance. There have been many experiments conducted to explore this strange phenomenon. It's basically about how physical objects can be connected under certain circumstances, connected to each other, despite vast distances between them, and whatever happens to the one object influences what happens to the other object. One of the first experiments involving quantum entanglement involved scientists who took a bar of steel, they cut it in half, and they took one half to Moscow, and the other half they took to Harvard University in the United States. And they subjected the bar that was in Moscow to 150,000 volts at 30 amps. And immediately the bar in Harvard started to get an induced electrical field. Now, quantum entanglement seems to indicate that when certain objects share a single wave pattern and are divided under certain conditions, they can still be connected despite any amount of distance between them and without the use of transference frequencies. Now, just on another but related note, scientists are proposing using this type of knowledge this type of aspect of reality to create 6G communication systems. Many of us know the dangers of 5G by now, and that the type of 5G that was created by the Huawei and Apple corporations, because their versions of 5G uses a 60 gigahertz frequency, which is also the resonant frequency of the oxygen atom. And when their version of 5G vibrates, the oxygen gets so heated that when it is in a water molecule, it literally boils the water, so that it boils the water in the cells of any living body. So any living body that's near 5G literally gets microwaved. Anyway, this is not a film clip about 5G, so I won't carry on about it here. Back to the new proposed 6G and how it demonstrates how the singularity molecule can also be applied to technology. And we'll talk about the singularity molecule again in a minute. So with 6G, you could have one cell phone that could read information from another cell phone instantaneously with no delay time at all, apparently from anywhere across the galaxy, apparently. And that is if both of the phones had a crystal with the same trace elements grown in a lab with the same shape and orientation of that same crystal in both of the phones. Now this apparently could be done without any loss of information and without the use of antennas or the use of transference frequencies such as radio waves, and without any harmful effects to living beings. So let's hope they bring that in. Now, there's actually something that goes beyond quantum entanglement. Actually, there's lots of things that go beyond quantum entanglement, but there's something called the quantum Zeno effect, which is quite interesting. The famous scientist, who I'm sure most of you already know, Nassim Haramein, who is the world leader in unified physics, has come up with what is known as the unified field equation. He took Einstein's 6 differential equations into an elegant solution, which means it's algebraic, and found through those equations that at the center of every cell, molecule, and or particle is a singularity. Not a similar singularity to all the other singularities, but by all definitions, the same exact one singularity. Now, many of the ancients have known about this all along. They just didn't have a scientific formula for it that we know of anyway. This singularity is also known as the tetragrammaton, or the elemental fractal of source creator, and it is also known as the literal seat of God. It's in the shape of a tetragrid with 64 tetrahedron, and apparently all of our emotions, feelings, ideas and thoughts go into this singularity as a gravity wave, and then light and sound comes back out to mold our reality. And since the nature of reality is holographic, it is far more malleable than most of us can comprehend. So the so-called box of reality that we find ourselves in is actually a complete illusion. Most of us who have looked into the basics of quantum physics also know by now that the core of the atom has no solid particles, it's only energy. Now, firstly, the nature of reality is based on several paradoxes, as I have mentioned in a previous film clip that I did. And that's my cat snoring in the background, kitty. Anyway, so two seemingly paradoxical and contradictory truths can exist simultaneously within one paradigm. Now, we're not talking about cognitive dissonance here. That's another story. You can ask your governments about that. Some of the new agey hipsters believe that they live in some completely autonomous bubble, and that all they have to do is worry about themselves and focus on themselves and their own issues and be positive, and everything will be right, mate. Well, this idea actually seems to be both correct and incorrect. Your positivity and happy vibes does help to raise the bar for the collective, which is great, but actually you cannot fully escape the influence or impact of the collective onto you and yours. And what happens in the collective is also to a greater or lesser degree your responsibility. Just have a look at things like the coronavirus and how that has affected everyone in some way, despite everybody's individual and varying realities. The Zeno effect gives rise to the idea that when you want to affect something locally, you affect everything, everywhere, instantaneously. Literally, where we go one, we go all. So every living thing has a vote on what happens in this world through this singularity. But most of us are manipulated to create a reality for ourselves that suits someone else's agenda without realizing it. Sometimes they do realize it. Anyway, also by helping other people, you are actually helping yourself in many mysterious and strange ways. So, you know, the story of if a tree falls in a forest, can anyone hear it? Well, the truth seems to be that everyone everywhere hears it simultaneously. They just are not aware of it. Also, next time that you look at a tree, an animal, or an insect, remember that the same God particle consciousness singularity that exists within you resides within it. You can also go to the seat of God to ask for whatever it is you are wanting or whatever. Of course, you just need to make sure that it's not going to harm others, or ask that it doesn't harm others. This is one of the foundational aspects of natural magic, which has been intentionally hidden from us, as opposed to things like satanic magic, which has to steal the life force and energy of other beings in order to create. And due to the darker frequencies of such magic, it can't access the singularity seat of God, hence why it needs to steal energy from others. Satanic and other forms of more destructive magic is also about making agreements and contracts with benevolent entities in order to bring about certain outcomes. Again, in a different way, taking energy from others, but and there is always a price to pay for such endeavors, because there's always a contract. The geometric structures of the benevolent service to others forms of magic and the manifestations, and these types of manifestations are stronger and more stable than the malevolent or destructive types of magic, and can be easily overridden. Just see Dr. Emoto's messages in the water to see some proof of this. Also remember, water seems to be one of those substances on earth that is one of the most easy to code for good and for bad. And of course our bodies are largely made up of water, so just think about that for a minute. The cabal, the satanic cabal who run this world, but seems like they're falling off their perch at the moment. Anyway, they want us to pay attention to their movies, their music, and their ideas, so that we can create the reality for them that they want. Obviously they can't create the reality for themselves, like we said before. So we need to pay more attention to where we cast our votes. Also, just something about the ego, because most of us have been told, most of what we've been told has been inverted, even within spiritual circles. We are often told we need to get rid of the ego, but the ego is an important tool and it's meant to be used as a filter so we can discern what is right and what is wrong. But most people on the planet's egos are just simply misaligned, and they simply need to be realigned so the ego can do the job that it was meant to do without causing destruction and mayhem and everything else. What do you think about this? What's your opinion? And just one final thing, as a quantum physics chat can't be finished without mentioning the age-old Michelson-Morley double split experiment, quantum physics experiment, which has now been conducted hundreds of times in various environments since the first versions were conducted in 1801. The experiment demonstrates how our thoughts, feelings, and actions cause waveforms to collapse into specific formations that create manifested particles. It's an age-old experiment on how thoughts create and impact matter. Now we are continuously being offered scripts from the elites and the authority that's meant to define our reality, and we forget that these scripts that are always being offered to us are always just a proposal. And I think it is time that humanity say no thanks to some of these proposals, and we decide to repaint the script and to reinvent ourselves. Don't you? This oil painting that I did is about just this thing, repainting the script and reinventing ourselves. Thanks again for watching and listening, and where we go one, we go all.